10 Facts about the Pharaohs of Ancient Egypt. The pharaoh's role in the empire was hugely important, transcending that of a typical monarch into that it straddled both religious and political spheres. Indeed, pharaohs were considered to be near-deities, who were nonetheless saddled with the distinctly earthly responsibilities of statesmen and women. Though their reigns stretch back deep into antiquity, the lives of the pharaohs are still vividly evoked by the remarkable treasures of ancient Egypt that continue to be unearthed today. If you're interested in knowing more about the pharaohs and their roles, we've gathered for you 10 facts about Egypt's emperors. Number 1. Pharaohs were both religious and political leaders. It was a pharaoh's responsibility to lead Egypt in both religious and political matters. These dual roles came with distinct titles: high priest of every temple and the lord of the two lands. As a spiritual leader, every pharaoh was expected to carry out sacred rituals and effectively act as a conduit between the gods and the people. Political leadership, meanwhile, encompassed more pragmatic concerns like legislation, diplomacy, and the provision of food and resources to their subjects. Number 2. Only pharaohs could make offerings to the gods. In their roles as high priests, the pharaohs made sacred offerings to the gods on a daily basis. It was believed that only the pharaoh could enter a holy temple and commune with the spirits of the gods. Only them could enter the temples and approach and touch the statues which held the spirits of the gods. Number 3. The pharaohs were regarded as incarnations of Horus. In life, the pharaohs were believed to be incarnations of the deity Horus before in death becoming Osiris, the god of the afterlife. Each new pharaoh was considered to be a new incarnation of Horus. Horus was one of the most important gods in the Egyptian pantheon, and he was depicted in a number of different ways. This may have been due to being an amalgamation of several different bird gods, worshipped separately or as one god at different points in Egyptian history. In most cases, he is strongly identified with falcons, and the more common depictions of him are either as a bird or as a falcon-headed man. The latter is more commonly associated with him today, although his hieroglyphic representation was as a bird. He is also sometimes seen as an eagle with wide swept wings on ceremonial necklaces worn by some pharaohs, or as a child with his mother Isis, or as a sphinx. As is typical in Egyptian art, Horus is typically only seen in profile. However, as a god of the sky, his eyes hold specific significance. It was said that one of his eyes was the sun and the other the moon. His sun eye is often depicted separately as the eye of Horus, a stylized eye with a distinctive teardrop shape beneath it. This eye also represents 1 in Egyptian mathematics. Number 4. Akhinyatan introduced monotheism, but it didn't last. Akhinyatan was an ancient Egyptian pharaoh, reigning 1351 to 1334 BC, the 10th ruler of the 18th dynasty. The reign of Akhinyatan represents a brief departure from polytheism in ancient Egypt. Akhinyatan was named Amenhotep IV at birth, but changed his name in accordance with his radical monotheistic beliefs. The meaning of his new name, he who is of service to the Aten, honored what he believed to be the one true god, Aten, the sun god. After Akhenaten's death, Egypt rapidly returned to polytheism and the traditional gods he had disavowed. Number 5. Makeup was obligatory. The ancient Egyptians regarded beauty as a sign of holiness. Everything the ancient Egyptians used had a spiritual aspect to it, including cosmetics. Both men and women wore makeup. Traders traded makeup often, especially in the upper classes. In tombs, cosmetic palettes were found buried in gold with the deceased as grave goods, which further emphasized the idea that cosmetics were not only used for aesthetic purposes, but rather magical and religious purposes. Both male and female pharaohs wore makeup, most notably an application of black kohel around the eyes. It's thought that this served several purposes: cosmetic, practical as a means of reducing light reflection, and spiritual due to the fact that the almond-shaped makeup enhanced their resemblance to the god Horus. Number 6. The crook and flail were important symbols of pharaonic authority. Often depicted in the hands of pharaohs, the crook and flail were widely used symbols of power in ancient Egypt. Typically depicted together and held across the chest of pharaohs, they formed an insignia of kingship. The crook, a cane with a hooked handle, represented the pharaoh's shepherd-like role of caring for his subjects, while interpretations of the flail's symbolism vary. A rod with 3 strands of beads attached to the top, the flail was either a weapon used by shepherds to defend their flock or a tool to thresh grain. If the former interpretation of the flail's use is accurate, then it might symbolize a pharaoh's firm leadership and the responsibility to maintain order, while as a thresher, it might symbolize the pharaoh's role as a provider. Number 7. They often marry their relatives. Like many royals through history, Egyptian pharaohs weren't averse to marrying within the family to preserve royal bloodlines. Marriage to sisters and daughters was not unheard of. Studies of Tutankhamun's mummified body have revealed that he was the product of incest, a fact that undoubtedly led to health issues and undesirable characteristics, including an overbite, feminine hips, unusually large breasts, and a clubfoot. Tutankhamun was just 19 when he died. Number 8. Tutankhamun may be the most famous pharaoh, but his reign was relatively inauspicious. Tutankhamun's fame derives almost exclusively from the discovery of his tomb in 1922, one of the great archaeological finds of the 20th century. King Tut, as he became known after the discovery of his spectacular burial site, only reigned for 10 years and died aged just 19. Tutankhamun took the throne at 8 or 9 years of age under the unprecedented viziership of his eventual successor, Ay, to whom he may have been related. He married his half-sister, Akhinyatan. During their marriage, they lost 2 daughters, one at 6 months of pregnancy and the other shortly after birth at full term. His names, Tutankhaten and Tutankhamun, are thought to mean living image of Aten and living image of Amun. Number 9. Their beards weren't real. As with the rulers of many societies, Egyptian pharaohs had no shortage of elaborate garments in their royal wardrobes, but perhaps the most distinctive of these are the strange false metallic beards that adorned the chins of these legendary leaders. Despite their braided accessories, pharaohs were normally meticulous shavers, according to most archaeologists and historians. The pharaohs were typically depicted with long braided beards, but in truth, they were all more than likely clean-shaven. The beards were fakes, worn to imitate the god Osiris, who is depicted sporting a handsome beard. Indeed, facial hair was such a must-have that even Hatshepsut, the first female pharaoh, sported a fake beard. Number 10. The largest of the pyramids is Khufu's Great Pyramid. The Great Pyramid of Giza is the oldest and only surviving wonder of the 7 wonders of the ancient world. Built over a 10 to 20 year period beginning around 2580 BC, it was designed as a tomb for the 4th dynasty pharaoh Khufu. It was also the first of the 3 pyramids in the Giza complex, which is also home to the Pyramid of Menkuri, the Pyramid of Khafre, and the Great Sphinx. The Great Pyramid remains one of the largest structures ever built and an awe-inspiring testament to the ancient Egyptians' architectural ambition and ingenuity. There are 3 known chambers inside the Great Pyramid. The lowest chamber is cut into the bedrock upon which the pyramid was built and was unfinished. The so-called Queen's Chamber and King's Chamber are higher up within the pyramid structure. The main part of the Giza complex is a set of buildings that included 2 mortuary temples in honor of Khufu, one close to the pyramid and one near the Nile, 3 smaller pyramids for Khufu's wives, and an even smaller satellite pyramid, a raised causeway connecting the 2 temples, and small mastaba tombs for nobles surrounding the pyramid.